This one's hard for me to talk about. I finally saw this figure come out and I said, oh no, what happened? This is my biggest disappointment of all my work in the toy industry. Hello, I am Bobby Vala, and these are some of my least favorite non-Action Force items that I've done in my toy career. So the last time around, I focused on some of my favorite items that I've worked on in my toy career, things I was always really proud of, but I felt like let's do something a little different and let me talk about some items that maybe didn't pan out the way I wanted to and I wasn't as proud of, and give you a little behind the scenes on what went wrong, what we could have done right, and why the item isn't really up to the standards that I would say would be good for a certain toy. First up, this is the San Diego Comic-Con 12-inch Marvel Legends Daredevil. You guys have heard me talk about the 12-inch Marvel Legends line. I was very proud of it. I got to do it from the very beginning and put my own spin on it. It was great. Now, that line was sort of doomed from the start because of decisions that were made and things that retail partners decided to go on. But I kind of kept going with it and seeing, well, what could I do and salvage it and do the best possible product I could. Now, I believe it was 2016. We were doing, planning our Comic-Con items, and we looked at, the fact that we had 6-inch Legends, we had the one-to-one role-play prop replicas, and we had 12-inch. At this time, they were starting to phase out 4-inch. So we said, let's try to do our first ever 12-inch Comic-Con item. And I was very excited because you get San Diego Comic-Con love. That's a great item. That item has a lot of awareness to it. They're always fun items. But they kind of said to me like, all right, we could do a 12-inch item, but you really can't do like a lot of new tooling. Can't really do much with it. So it's like you're already handcuffed. You're already designing with sort of one arm tied behind your back. But I said, all right, I'm going to make something cool. And I believe at this time was when the Netflix Daredevil series was at its height. It had just come out, or they might have been on season 2, I'm not sure, but I know that the series was out. And we said, all right, well, let's do Daredevil. Daredevil would be a great figure to do. But I had to get really creative because I was only allowed to do a certain amount of tooling. 75% of it had to have been, an existing figure. But at this time, we had only done Captain America, Iron Man, and Spider-Man. Iron Man and Captain America both had very iconic sculpts to them. Cap had the scaling and the star. Iron Man was Iron Man. So the only base body he really had was Spider-Man, but Spider-Man was thin. Spider-Man was thinner than the rest. So we're like, all right, well, can we make it work with Spider-Man? And I think we did. I think, from the knees up, I'm almost totally happy with it. I think he's still a bit thin for Daredevil. But then as we got into it, some things just went wrong, and I don't know why. Thinking back, this is, 2015 when we're doing it, late 2015, because then it comes out in 2016. We're like a year in advance. So I'm trying to remember like what kind of went wrong, and, as a designer, sometimes you miss things. Sometimes you're just working on a lot of stuff, or sometimes you don't catch it, and maybe someone else doesn't catch it. And it's not until after the fact that you realize that there was an issue. So for Daredevil, we did a new head, we did new forearms because you can interchange the forearms with the wrapped ones, new belt with batons, and new boots and feet. I had planned to do a bendy wire throwing baton, but couldn't do that. So he just got a pair of regular batons. And then he got a beat up head, beat up Matt Murdock head, and a cowl that he could just hold in his hand. So some fun stuff. And then, so again, with this line, I was able to do my own sort of artistic spin on it. I didn't have to follow what was done in the comics. So I said, well, I'm going to make his gauntlets cool, and I'm going to make his cowl different than we've ever seen before, and his boots, and his, the tactical belt for his batons. And it was all going well, and then in production, the head was just a tad bit too small. But then the glaring issue was his enormous feet. For some reason, his boots got enormous. And I remember making a good amount of comments, like slimming things down, but in the end, his boots were just way too big and clunky for this figure. You know, some people might say, oh, they look fine. To me, I see it and I'm like, oh, those are so bad. Like they just should have been changed so much. And it's just unfortunate that for my second Comic-Con item, like that happened, and it doesn't come out as good as I wanted to. My first Comic-Con item was an item I didn't want to do, but I got, you know, pushed into it. This one was my second one, and then this kind of happened. But then my third one I felt a lot better about, but you know, it's just unfortunate that this happened because everything about this item was so good. You know, the packaging was great. I had suggested Joe Quesada for the artwork, and they actually got Joe Quesada. I have one that Joe signed for me. You know, the inside came with posters, like posters of Joe Quesada's artwork. The packaging has Braille on the back. Like, it was very cool. It's just unfortunate that, you know, some things just didn't work out about Daredevil. So that's Daredevil. You know, it's still maybe like a 6 or a 7 out of 10, but it could have been so much better than it turned out to be. Sticking with Marvel, I have another one. This one is a 4-inch figure. I was working on the 12-inch figures, some 6-inch figures, 4-inch figures. I got to do a whole range of Marvel, but this is one of the 4-inch Infinite Series figures, and it is the Beast figure. This one really pains me when I see it because when I was working on the 4-inch line, I was so excited to take it over, but, you know, they said, all right, well, we're going to start, you know, cost reducing this line. We're lowering the price. And I knew like I wasn't going to get to do a lot of really great things because I just didn't have the tooling dollars to put into these figures. The thing with Beast is I wanted to do him. He had not been done in the line. They had done the Astonishing X-Men Cat Beast. Super articulated, very great figure, toes, all sorts of articulation. But I was like, they didn't do a classic Jim Lee X-Men Beast. I said, I want to do Beast. Now this one here is the gray version. I don't have the blue one, but we did a variant. Basically, it was the same body, just 2 different heads. But they, you know, again, same body, and they came out at the same time. So I said, I want to do blue Beast. But it was a gamble because I had no articulation. You look on this figure, no torso articulation, no thigh cut, no shin cut, no bicep swivel. So it's like, how do you do someone as like nimble and articulate as Beast and not do him and make him do everything he can do? But it was like, do you not do Beast because you can't do everything you want? Or do you do them and try to do your best? And I looked at it, I was like, well, can't not do the line. We have to put someone in the line. So I figured, well, if I can tool an entire new body, I want it to be Beast. And I can use it twice by doing the gray version, the blue version. But, you know, it came out the way it came out. And, you know, we were getting a lot of flack from the fans then because of the lack of things that came with these figures. You know, there's nothing in here. No articulation, no accessories. But at the end of the day, you got a Beast. So, you know, at least you got someone you could put in your Marvel Universe collection. But this whole line, I mean, going back and looking at the figures, you know, on the back, it's like this Bishop figure could very well be the number 2 to the Beast as far as like figures that didn't get to do, you know, really well. And there were some where we got to use some of the old bodies. The Ares is really good because he's on an old, a body with more articulation. You know, I did a yellow Daredevil who's on just that Daredevil body. But as far as like some of the new figures, I just didn't get the money to use to create really, really great figures. Now, looking back, now that I'm in the costing and the product development, I'm looking and I'm like, I bet you we could have put a ton of articulation in that. I think if they were just a little less greedy with their margins, we could have made some really amazing figures, and this line could have continued to live on. But, you know, when you're sitting there as a senior designer and you're talking with VPs and VPs are making decisions, this is how this happens. But, you know, I tried my best on it, and I'm not happy with it. But it is what it is. We got a Beast in the line. although it's not the beast that you guys deserved. Still Hasbro stuff. We're gonna go with some G.I. Joe now. Now, I came on to the G.I. Joe brand in 2016, and I couldn't have been more excited. G.I. Joe is my all-time favorite toy line. It was my first Hasbro internship in 2011. And then when they were kind of in flux with G.I. Joe and they were thinking about doing the next movie, the third movie, that didn't pan out, they put me on to G.I. Joe because I felt like I was getting a little stale on Marvel, and I just wanted a slight change. Now, the funny thing is I just ended up pulling double duty because I continued doing my Marvel items while I was on the G.I. Joe brand. And, you know, the G.I. Joe brand, we never got to really do a lot of the stuff that we had planned. Like I'd done, you know, my 6-inch Joe line, we called it G.I. Joe Elite. That was the first iteration of 6-inch, you know, highly articulated premium G.I. Joe figures. And when they canceled the third movie, they canceled that line, even though now, had we fought harder and got them to know that we could do a line of figures without entertainment, it would have lived on because we see it with Classified. But also at the same time, there was the G.I. Joe Collectors Club. And the G.I. Joe Collectors Club was a subscription service, and they put out a couple waves of figures per year. And it was more obscure figures and, you know, very little tooling. And when they did new tooling, it was aluminum tooling. So it was very short runs, and that tooling didn't last. And you can use it for one run, and it's super cheap. But they were cool figures, and they were sought after, and they were very expensive. But like everyone wanted the Collectors Club figures. And because I was running the Joe brand at the time, I was handling all the approvals for the Collectors Club stuff. So it was at the time where I was talking with, you know, Brian Savage, who was running the Collectors Club. I said, look, I could do the designs for you. Like, you know, I'll come up with the choices and I'll do the designs. So he was happy to have me doing the work for him. So those that last year, so like the last 2 or 3 waves of FSS subscription figures, I designed most of them. And then I was doing all the design work, but I also knew the parts library. I knew you could show me a thigh, I'd know who it went to from, you know, my knowledge of the G.I. Joe library from 2007 to 2016. Like I knew like the back of my hand. I love those figures, and I knew, you know, how to cobble together figures because most of it was kit bashing. You got a new head maybe here and there. So one that I did that I was very upset with, and I did apologize to the fans, was the 1990 General Hawk. When I was a kid, I loved this figure. He was a dude with a jetpack with missiles on it, General Hawk, the leader. Like, he was just cool. Everything about him was cool. And I said, like, this could be one of my choices. Like, I wanted to do the General Hawk figure. Now, you know, I was able to go through and pick the body parts, and like, you know, the bandolier was from the Retaliation Cobra Trooper, and this backpack was from the Skydive figure from Pursuit of Cobra. Same thing with the helmet, and you know, the body was the Clean Sweep body from 30th Anniversary, and I was able to put together something really, really good. Now, I'm pretty sure none of him was new tooling. Let me see. Yeah, because even the head was the Pursuit of Cobra Duke, and we just gave him brown hair. G.I. Joe, we did that all the time where, you know, you couldn't do that on Marvel or Star Wars or something like that, but, you know, so many G.I. Joes like had the same head. You know, but that goes back all the way to the Real American Hero line. But when I was doing the deco sheet for this, I do not know what I was thinking, why I chose the colors I chose, because the original 1990 version, he had this really cool OD green and like brown for the straps. And maybe it was subconsciously, but this is how the figure looked in the Fun School line. Fun School was done in India, and they used really bright, weird colors for figures. So this figure came out like bright green and bright orange, and when it, you know, I wasn't getting samples because the Collectors Club, once I kicked off the designs and stuff, they put it into production, they handle all that end. I finally saw this figure come out, and I said, oh no, what happened? And I was like, let me go back and look. And I went back and I looked at my PMS colors, and sure enough, like I picked these colors. Again, sometimes you miss stuff. Sometimes, you know, I was still younger in my toy design career, and I picked bad colors. I definitely picked bad colors for this figure, and he came out this way. Now, some people were like, oh, it's still great. And I was on a G.I. Joe podcast where I apologized to the fans for doing this because he should not have come out this way. And I still look at him and I'm still mad at myself that he came out this way. So again, G.I. Joe fans, sorry for this one. This one's hard for me to talk about because this one stings really, really bad. And seeing it in front of me brings back a lot of tough memories. But this is my all-time, like, worst / most disappointing item that I've ever worked on. This is the Spider-Man Web Slingers, I believe it's called the Trick Shot Showdown. This was it was like 2014, 2015. I was on the Spider-Man brand, and I just come off the Sony Spider-Man 2 figures, or that line, which was really fun to work on. And they switched to now animation. They usually flip-flop. You do live action, then animation, live action, animation. So this was an animation year. Very excited because Web Warriors was coming out. They were bringing in all like the cool characters. You had 2099, you had Agent Venom, you had Miles Morales, you had regular Spider-Man. So it was like they were the Web Warriors. They had this one, like, it was like a medieval knight Spider-Man. It was so cool. He had a sword on his arm. Very, very cool. So I was so excited for this line, and they said you get to do a playset. Playsets were so few and far between at that time. No one got to do playsets. Playsets were a very like tough nut to crack because ones that came before didn't perform well, and management at the time just didn't like the idea of playsets. They were just like, I don't know, but for some reason we were granted a playset. And it was a $40 price point, no figure, awesome. That's a lot of money to have for an item to make something. So I remember the first iteration, I said, all right, I want it like, and I was looking at old play sets, great play sets, bad play sets. A lot of what I saw, I looked at Toy Biz. When Toy Biz had the Marvel license, they did this training center. Didn't fit anywhere in the comics or anything. It was just a training center for all the guys. You looked at Secret Wars, and you had, Doom's Castle or whatever that was. But some playsets were iconic, some were not. I wanted something, because there was nothing really iconic, because he swings around New York City. How do you make something really iconic? First one I made, it was almost like a subway Batcave kind of thing for him. It was big and in multiple levels, full with webs and stuff, and we wanted to treat it something like if you were to go to a carnival, because the way the figures worked is the figures had like spring action on them, and they came with these stretchy webs. This material is called PU. Now, the way it worked is, and I don't think that it worked really well, but you kind of shot it. So it was fun in that sense. So it was like, how do we make something fun? I was like, they're Web Warriors. How could you shoot a web with a 4-inch or 5-inch figure? So with this stretchy material. And I said, okay, let's treat the playset almost like a carnival where you're just shooting stuff all the time and knocking things over and this and that. So that's what I did. And then I think what happened was upper management or retail saw the render or what at a meeting. And they were like, yeah, we don't like that. And then they were like, well, it can't be $40, so it has to be $30, but you have to include a figure. It was like retail went through this weird thing, and I've talked about it on the 12-inch line, where they were like, you have to see the figure. We had a 5th panel planned, or make it kind of like Transformers Masterpieces, where it was in a slipcase. Got to see the figures. But we were looking at other brands like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles at the time weren't following the same rules. They were doing, they had this line, and it was all zip line stuff, and it all connected together. And they did this 3-foot-high sewer playset. They were doing amazing stuff and not having to stick to these rules that retail was putting on us. But also our sales team at Hasbro never fought for the product. They just said, okay, So I'm sitting in the back of this meeting hearing retail say, we want it $30 and you got to include one of the figures. And I'm like, is somebody going to tell them? Because these figures were $10 at the time. You got a figure and you got 3 of these webs, and that was $10. And I said, that means I'm designing a $20 playset. So I had to go back from scratch and just redesign it. And it ended up, they wanted to move away from like the subway with all the webs and stuff like that. And they wanted it more like tech-based. And I think at that point I was sort of just burnt out. I was also like a younger designer. And, you know, what we came up with was this garbage. And it's garbage. I'm so, like, I'm almost upset that I was a part of this, because this was garbage. Like, it's flimsy PVC or polypropylene. You know, it's a couple walls that go together, super thin. It's a door that breaks open. So I'm trying to basically make a corner. So you take a corner of a room, and because I don't have much to do with it, I lost all my spring-loaded stuff. So it's basically just stuff you hit that spun around, okay? You know, this, you hit it and spun around. It's like, okay, well, I was able to get like a thing so Spider-Man can like hold on to that and you can pull him up. It was like, you know, we had a motorcycle in the line, and the idea was like, this would have been a ramp to shoot the motorcycle through, but it ended up being stairs. I don't remember much about like why a lot of this was changed. Like, this was, you shoot the door, and if you put a bad guy here and you shoot the door and it flips them up, it's like that's cheesy. Like these features had to be so basic on this playset, and you got nothing. Like, there's the deco is this silver. Other than that, it came with, you know, label sheets to put on it, but there's nothing you can do to really like dress this thing up. And it's like, you look at it on the back, it's so unimpressive. So unimpressive. Like, oh, a hook on the side to hold your webs. Like, I was fighting to like find something to put on this to make it cool. But at that point, when you're trying to design a $20 playset, like, playsets should be the most expensive things. And I went from a $40 playset with no figure to a $20 playset, half the cost. So it's just like, I got nothing. I was able to do nothing. And we got it. I was just so like upset with it, because it's like, you never get to do playsets. And I got to do a playset. Me being there for a couple of years, I got to do a playset, and it was such a disappointment. And it's too bad, because I love this Web Warriors line. I do. I think the figures came out great, like the way we designed them, and you know, we made these really cool 5 POA figures that were just cool looking. They were just really cool modern day figures. And like I said, the Agent Venom, the medieval knight Spider-Man was so cool. But then like the things that they just came with, like, it just, you know, and again, if it was movie based, I think we would have had more money to play with, but it was animation. Retail didn't really care about animation. They looked at it as like a down year. But this is what we got. And again, I sit here looking, I'm like, oh, this is just awful. I can't even say anything good about it. You know, the best, like, yeah, okay, so it came with a good figure, but it's like, this figure was already in the line. This is the blue and red Spider-Man. This was the classic Spider-Man. They were, oh, how are we going to change it up? Well, let's make them black and red. But this is the same Spider-Man that was in the main line. And that was what you got. So this is my biggest disappointment of all my work in the toy industry. You know, one day I wish I could do a playset so I can like erase this from my playset portfolio. But yeah, so hopefully you guys have enjoyed me talking about items that I've been disappointed with and could have been better and should have been better. That's why today I strive to make the best possible items, because, you know, you never want to disappoint the consumers and the fans. You know, so I try really hard to make the best possible item. I fought so hard for the items with every company I worked at, Hasbro, Jazzwares, and I was beat down at every turn. And this is what happens when you get beat down by upper management and retail. You know, now it's like I have the freedom to do my own thing, and I enjoy doing my own thing, and I still am trying to make the best possible products. Sometimes you miss a thing here and there, but for the most part, I really try to make something great that you guys love. So hopefully there won't be any more of these in my career, and we'll continue just enjoying really awesome figures. So thank you guys for watching, and you know, maybe we'll uncover some more stuff that I worked on and talk about it if this is the kind of thing you guys want to see. So thanks again for watching. Hope you enjoyed it.